First contact and challenge. The vast expanse of space had always beckoned humanity, its endless darkness punctuated by the twinkling of distant stars. For centuries, mankind had wondered if they were alone in the universe. On July 15, 2157, they got their answer. The skies above Earth's major cities suddenly darkened as massive ships appeared, their sleek, otherworldly designs unlike anything humans had ever conceived. Panic gripped the planet as governments scrambled to respond to what many feared was an invasion. But the aliens, who called themselves the Zarkari, came not with weapons of war, but with a challenge. Admiral Elena Rodriguez stood on the bridge of the UNS Horizon, Earth's most advanced spacecraft, as it approached the Zarkari mothership. Her heart raced, but her face remained impassive. As humanity's appointed representative, she couldn't show fear. "Admiral," her communications officer called out, "we're receiving a transmission from the alien vessel." Rodriguez took a deep breath. On screen, the view screen flickered to life, revealing a being that defied easy description. The Zarkari ambassador, Celta, appeared vaguely humanoid, but with iridescent scales covering its body and 4 arms that moved with unsettling grace. Its eyes, large and multifaceted like an insect's, seemed to pierce right through Rodriguez. "Greetings, humans," Zalto's voice resonated through the ship's speakers, a melodic yet alien sound. "We have observed your species for some time, and now we come to offer you a place among the stars." Rodriguez's brow furrowed. "A place? What exactly do you mean?" Celta's mouthparts twitched in what might have been a smile. "The galaxy is vast and filled with wonders, Admiral, but it is also fraught with dangers. Only species that prove their worth are allowed to join the Galactic Confederation." "And how does one prove their worth?" Rodriguez asked, though she suspected she wouldn't like the answer. "Through the Crucible," Celta replied. "A test of survival on one of the most inhospitable planets in the known universe. We call it Deathworld Nexus." The bridge fell silent as the implications sank in. Rodriguez's mind raced, weighing the potential benefits against the risks. "And if we refuse?" Celta's eyes seemed to darken. "Then you will remain isolated on your world, cut off from the greater galaxy and the protection it offers. The choice is yours, but know this: there are forces in the universe far more dangerous than us. Without allies, your species may not survive what's coming." Rodriguez felt the weight of humanity's future on her shoulders. She glanced at her crew, seeing determination in their eyes. Humanity had faced countless challenges throughout its history. This would be just one more. "We accept your challenge," Rodriguez declared, her voice unwavering. Celta nodded, seemingly pleased. "Very well. You have 1 Earth month to select your champions. Choose wisely, for they will determine the fate of your entire species." As the transmission ended, Rodriguez turned to her second-in-command. "Contact Earth. We need to assemble the best team humanity has ever seen." The next few weeks were a whirlwind of activity. Governments around the world put aside their differences, united by the common goal of survival. Special forces from every nation were evaluated, their skills and psychological profiles scrutinized for the slightest advantage. In the end, 5 individuals were chosen to represent humanity. Major Sarah Chen, a tactical genius with unparalleled survival skills, honed in the harshest environments Earth had to offer. Dr. Alejandro Reyes, a brilliant xenobiologist and medical expert, capable of adapting to unknown biological threats. Captain Nikolay Volkov, a former Spetsnaz operative with nerves of steel and expertise in hand-to-hand combat. Dr. Amelia Okoy, an environmental engineer specializing in hostile terrain adaptation and resource management. Sergeant Jack O'Neill, a demolitions expert with a knack for improvisation and thinking outside the box. As the team assembled on the launch pad, ready to board the ship that would take them to the Zarkari vessel, the weight of their mission hung heavy in the air. They were humanity's best hope, chosen to face unknown horrors on a planet designed to kill them. Major Chen, the team leader, looked at her companions. "I know you're all feeling the pressure," she said, her voice steady. "But remember, we're not just fighting for ourselves. We're fighting for every human being, born and yet to be born. We will not fail." The others nodded, determination etched on their faces. As they boarded the ship, cheers erupted from the crowd gathered to see them off. Millions more watched on screens around the world, their hopes and dreams pinned on these 5 individuals. As the ship lifted off, leaving Earth behind, Zelta watched from the Zarkari mothership. Another Zarkari approached, its movements betraying concern. "Are you certain about this, Ambassador?" the newcomer asked. "These humans, they're unlike any species we've encountered before." Zelta's eyes gleamed with an emotion that might have been anticipation, or perhaps fear. "That's precisely why we must test them, Commander. If they are as formidable as our observations suggest, they could tip the balance of power in the galaxy. And if not..." Zelta trailed off, leaving the grim alternative unspoken. As the human ship docked with the Zarkari vessel, Zelta prepared to greet Earth's champions. The true test was about to begin, and the fate of humanity hung in the balance. Little did the Zarkari know, they were about to witness firsthand why humans were the ultimate survivors, ready to defy the odds and rewrite the rules of the galaxy. The journey to Deathworld Nexus had begun, and with it, a new chapter in human history. The universe would soon learn that when pushed to the brink, humanity doesn't just endure, it thrives. Arrival on Deathworld Nexus. The Zarkari vessel cut through the fabric of space, its advanced propulsion system allowing it to cross vast interstellar distances in a matter of days. Inside, the human team prepared themselves for the challenges ahead, each member focused on their specific areas of expertise. Major Sarah Chen stood at a viewport, watching as unfamiliar star systems blurred past. Her mind raced with tactical scenarios, trying to anticipate what they might face on Deathworld Nexus. Behind her, she heard the measured footsteps of Dr. Alejandro Reyes approaching. "Major," Reyes said, his voice low and concerned. "I've been analyzing the limited data the Zarkari provided about our destination. To say it's troubling would be an understatement." Chen turned to face him, her expression grim. "Give it to me straight, Doctor. How bad are we talking?" Reyes ran a hand through his hair, a nervous habit he'd never quite shaken. "It's unlike anything we've ever encountered. The atmosphere is highly corrosive, with storms that can strip flesh from bone. The flora and fauna have evolved to survive in conditions that would kill most carbon-based life forms instantly. And that's just what we know from the basic overview." Chen nodded, absorbing the information. "Any advantages we can exploit?" "Possibly," Reyes replied. "The planet's core produces an unusual electromagnetic field. It might interfere with some of the Zarkari technology. If we can adapt, it could give us an edge." The conversation was interrupted by the ship's intercom. "Attention, human representatives." Zelta's voice echoed through the chamber. "We are approaching Deathworld Nexus. Please prepare for arrival and briefing." The team gathered in the observation deck, watching as the Zarkari ship entered orbit around a planet that seemed to pulsate with malevolence. Deathworld Nexus was a swirling mass of angry storm clouds, punctuated by flashes of lightning that illuminated vast, twisted landscapes below. Zelta entered, flanked by 2 other Zarkari. "Welcome to Deathworld Nexus," the ambassador announced, gesturing towards the viewport. "This will be your home for the next 30 planetary cycles, if you survive that long." Captain Nikolay Volkov, his face a mask of stoic determination, spoke up. "What exactly are the parameters of this test?" Zelta's mouthparts twitched in what might have been amusement. "Simple survival, Captain. If at least one of you is still alive after 30 cycles, your species passes the test. You will be provided with basic supplies and dropped at random locations across the planet's surface. After that, you're on your own." Dr. Amelia Okoye frowned. "And what about extraction? How will you monitor our progress?" "We have observation satellites in orbit," Zelta explained. As for extraction, you need only activate this beacon. The ambassador held up a small crystalline device. But be warned, using it before the 30 cycles are complete will result in immediate failure. Sergeant Jack O'Neill, who had been unusually quiet, finally spoke. So we just need to stay alive for a month on a planet literally designed to kill us? Piece of cake. His sarcasm was palpable, but there was a glint of excitement in his eyes. Zeltor either missed or chose to ignore the sarcasm. We will now equip you with environment suits designed to offer some protection against the planet's atmosphere. They will not last indefinitely, so use them wisely. As the team donned the alien suits, Chen couldn't shake the feeling that there was more to this test than simple survival. The Zarkari were hiding something, but what? Hours later, the human team found themselves in individual drop pods, hurtling towards the surface of Deathworld Nexus. As they pierced the turbulent atmosphere, the pods were buffeted by winds strong enough to tear apart lesser craft. Chen gritted her teeth as her pod slammed into the ground, the impact dampeners barely managing to keep her from being crushed. As the hatch hissed open, she got her first real look at the nightmare world they would call home for the next month. The landscape before her was alien in every sense of the word. The ground was a patchwork of iridescent crystal formations and writhing, fungus-like growths. The sky, visible through gaps in the perpetual storm clouds, was a sickly green hue. In the distance, she could see what looked like a forest, but the trees pulsated and moved in ways that defied explanation. Chen's suit sensors immediately began blaring warnings about the atmospheric composition and radiation levels. She quickly realized that every second exposed to this environment was a risk. As she began to survey her immediate surroundings for anything useful, a piercing shriek cut through the air. Chen instinctively ducked behind a crystalline formation, her hand reaching for a weapon that wasn't there. From her cover, she watched as a creature that could only be described as a nightmarish fusion of bird and insect swooped overhead, its compound eyes scanning the ground for prey. First objective, Chen muttered to herself, find the others and establish a base of operations. She knew that their chances of survival would increase exponentially if they could regroup. Meanwhile, across the planet, the other team members were facing their own challenges. Dr. Reyes found himself in the middle of a field of what appeared to be carnivorous plants, their tendrils reaching out hungrily every time he moved. Captain Volkov had landed in a region of constant electrical storms, the energy playing havoc with his suit's systems. Dr. Okoye was navigating a series of ever-shifting canyons, the ground literally moving beneath her feet. And Sergeant O'Neill had the misfortune of dropping into a nest of creatures that seemed to be a cross between scorpions and wolves. As the human team struggled to survive their first hours on Deathworld Nexus, they were unaware that they were being watched not just by the Zarkari, but by other hidden eyes as well. In a secret chamber aboard the Zarkari ship, Zeltor met with a shadowy figure, its form obscured by a shimmering energy field. The humans have been deployed, Zeltor reported. Their initial responses are intriguing. The figure's voice was a low hiss. Remember your true mission, Zeltor. We must know if these humans are the ones spoken of in the prophecy. If they are, they must not be allowed to leave this planet alive. Zeltor bowed low. I understand, Overseer. If they are indeed the foretold Deathworlders, Deathworld Nexus will be their grave. As the human team fought for survival on the deadly planet below, they were oblivious to the true stakes of their mission. The fate of not just humanity, but potentially the entire galaxy rested on their shoulders. The real test was just beginning, and the universe watched with bated breath to see if humanity would rise to the challenge or be crushed by the unforgiving crucible of Deathworld Nexus. Adapting to the impossible. As the harsh sun of Deathworld Nexus set on their first day, casting an eerie purple glow across the landscape, the scattered members of the human team fought against exhaustion and the constant assault of the alien environment. Each of them had faced unique challenges, but their training and innate human adaptability were already beginning to show. Major Sarah Chen had managed to create a makeshift shelter using the crystalline formations and the tough, fibrous leaves of a local plant species. She had discovered that when treated with a secretion from a small, slug-like creature, the leaves became nearly impervious to the corrosive atmosphere. It wasn't comfortable, but it would keep her alive. As she huddled in her shelter, Chen activated the short-range communicator built into her suit. "This is Major Chen. If anyone can hear this, respond with your location and status." She waited, hoping against hope that the others were alive and within range. After a moment of static, a familiar voice crackled through. "Chen, it's O'Neill. I'm about 10 clicks south of my drop point. Currently holed up in what I think is an animal carcass. Don't ask." Chen couldn't help but smile. Leave it to O'Neill to find the most unorthodox solution. "Good to hear your voice, Sergeant. Anyone else?" Another voice joined the channel. "Dr. Okoye here. I'm approximately 15 clicks east of my original position. I found a network of caves that seem to offer some protection from the elements." Over the next hour, Shen managed to make contact with Dr. Reyes and Captain Volkov as well. All had survived the initial landing and have found ways to adapt to their immediate surroundings. It was a testament to human ingenuity and resilience. "All right, team," Chen said, her voice filled with determination. "Our primary objective now is to regroup. Dr. Okoye's caves sound like our best bet for a base of operations. We'll converge there. Be careful, stick to cover, and remember your training. Chen out." As the human team began their perilous journeys across the hostile terrain of Deathworld Nexus, the Zarkari observation post buzzed with activity. Celta stood before a bank of holographic displays, each showing the progress of one of the humans. A junior analyst approached, its scaled skin shimmering with nervous energy. "Ambassador, I don't understand. By all our calculations, the humans should have perished within hours of landing. How are they not only surviving but adapting to conditions that would kill even our most hardy species?" Zelta's compound eyes narrowed. "That young one is precisely what we're here to find out. Continue monitoring and record every adaptation, every solution they implement. We must understand how they're doing this." Back on the planet's surface, Dr. Alejandro Reyes was making a fascinating discovery. The carnivorous plants that had initially threatened him were proving to be an unexpected ally. He had noticed that smaller indigenous creatures seemed to avoid the areas where these plants grew densely. Using a pair of makeshift tongs crafted from his suit's emergency repair kit, Reyes carefully harvested some of the plants. He then used them to create a perimeter around his camp, effectively warding off potential predators. "Incredible," he muttered to himself as he worked. "These plants have evolved a complex chemical defense mechanism. If I can isolate the compound, it could revolutionize our understanding of xenobiology." Meanwhile, Captain Nikolay Volkov had turned his electromagnetic challenge into an advantage. He had noticed that the constant electrical storms seemed to follow certain patterns. By tracking these patterns, he was able to create relatively safe corridors of travel. Moreover, he discovered that the intense electromagnetic activity could be harnessed. Using parts from his suit's power cell and some conductive materials he found in the environment, Volkov crafted a crude but effective weapon, a short-range electromagnetic pulse generator that could temporarily stun the local wildlife. As Volkov tested his new device on a particularly aggressive predator, he couldn't help but grin. "Vot tak," he exclaimed. "Let's see the Zarkari match human ingenuity." Dr. Amelia Okoye, in her network of caves, was making progress of her own. She had discovered that the cave system was actually a living organism, constantly shifting and adapting to the harsh conditions outside. By studying its movements and the composition of its walls, Okoye was developing a deeper understanding of the planet's geology and ecosystem. "Fascinating," she said, running her gloved hand along the pulsating wall of the cave. "It's as if the entire planet is one giant, interconnected organism. If we can learn to work with it instead of against it." Her thoughts were interrupted by a rumbling from deep within the cave. The ground beneath her feet began to shift, and she realized with a start that the cave was moving again. But instead of panicking, Okoye closed her eyes and focused on the patterns she'd observed. With careful, deliberate steps, she began to move with the cave, almost as if dancing with a living structure. To her amazement, the cave seemed to respond to her movements, opening up safer passages and even revealing hidden chambers rich with resources she could use. Sergeant Jack O'Neill, true to form, had turned his grisly shelter into a fortress. Using the bones and hide of the massive creature he found, along with his demolitions expertise, O'Neill had crafted traps and defensive positions around his location. Welcome to Casa de O'Neill, he quipped to himself as he put the finishing touches on a particularly nasty surprise for any would-be predators, where the decor is deadly and the hospitality is explosive. As the team slowly converged on Dr. Okoye's position, each overcoming incredible obstacles and making groundbreaking discoveries, the Zarkari observation post was in an uproar. Zelta stared at the displays, a mix of awe and fear in his alien eyes. "Impossible," he whispered. "They're not just surviving, they're thriving. How can this be?" The shadowy figure of the overseer materialized in the room, its presence causing the other Zarkari to cower in fear. "You were right to call me, Zelta. These humans, they are indeed the Deathworlders of legend. The prophecy is coming to pass." Zelta turned to the overseer, confusion evident in his posture. "But what does this mean for us, for the galaxy?" The overseer's form seemed to shimmer with barely contained energy. "It means, my dear Zelta, that the balance of power is about to shift. These humans must not be allowed to realize their true potential. Prepare the eradicators. It's time to end this experiment." As the Zarkari prepared to unleash their deadliest weapons, the human team, unaware of the true danger looming over them, continued their incredible journey of adaptation and survival. The real test was about to begin, and the fate of humanity, and perhaps the entire galaxy, hung in the balance. The hunt begins. As the human team converged on Dr. Okoye's cave system, the atmosphere on Deathworld Nexus seemed to shift. The already hostile environment became even more treacherous, as if the planet itself was conspiring against them. Unbeknownst to the humans, this was the work of the Zarkari Eradicators, elite units specially designed to eliminate threats to their galactic order. Major Sarah Chen was the first to notice something was amiss. As she carefully navigated through a field of crystalline structures, her suit's sensors began to pick up unusual energy signatures. "Team, be advised," she transmitted over the secure channel. "I'm detecting anomalous readings. Stay alert." Captain Volkov's voice crackled through the comm. "Confirmed, Major. I'm seeing similar patterns here. It's almost as if..." His transmission was suddenly cut off by a deafening screech. "Volkov, report," Chen shouted, her heart racing. There was no response. Kilometers away, Volkov found himself surrounded by what could only be described as living shadows. The Eradicators, cloaked in technology far beyond human understanding, moved with lethal grace. Their forms seemed to bend light itself, making them nearly invisible to the naked eye. But Volkov wasn't a decorated Special Forces veteran for nothing. As the first Eradicator lunged at him, he activated his improvised EMP device. The burst of electromagnetic energy didn't harm the alien attacker, but it did disrupt its cloaking field for a split second, long enough for Volkov to dodge and counter. "Mini tak leko ubit. Were not so easy to kill," Volkov growled, engaging in a deadly dance with opponents he could barely see. Back at the Zarkari command ship, Zelta watched the unfolding battle with a mixture of fascination and horror. "Impossible," he muttered. "No species has ever lasted more than a few minutes against the Eradicators." The Overseer's voice echoed through the chamber, tinged with a note of concern. "Perhaps we have underestimated these humans. Increase the planetary defenses. We cannot allow them to survive." As if responding to an unheard command, Deathworld Nexus itself seemed to come alive with renewed fury. Storms of caustic rain lashed the landscape, while the ground erupted in geyser-like explosions of toxic gas. Dr. Alejandro Reyes found himself caught in one such storm, the acidic droplets eating away at his suit's outer layer. Thinking quickly, he retreated to a grove of the carnivorous plants he had been studying. To his amazement, the plants began to secrete a thick, mucus-like substance that neutralized the acid. Fascinating, Reyes breathed, his scientific curiosity overriding even his survival instinct for a moment. These plants have evolved a symbiotic relationship with the planet's weather patterns. An idea struck him. Team, if you can hear me, seek out the red-leafed plants. They offer protection against the acid storms. Meanwhile, Sergeant O'Neill was putting his demolitions expertise to good use. As a pack of eradicators closed in on his position, he detonated a series of traps he had laid using local minerals he discovered to be highly volatile. The resulting explosion sent shockwaves across the planet's surface, temporarily disorienting the eradicators and giving O'Neill the opening he needed to escape. "Who's hunting who now, you overgrown lizards?" he quipped, disappearing into a maze of razor-sharp rock formations. Dr. Okoye, still in the relative safety of her living cave system, was making a breakthrough of her own. By studying the cave's reactions to the increasing planetary turmoil, she began to decipher patterns in the chaos. "Major Chen," she transmitted, her voice filled with excitement despite the dire situation. "I think I figured it out. The planet, the storms, even these new attackers, they're all connected. It's like a massive, planet-wide defense system." Chen, who had been fighting off waves of indigenous predators driven into a frenzy by the planetary changes, paused to consider this information. "Can you exploit it, Doctor?" "I believe so," Okoye replied. "If we can tap into the planet's natural rhythms, we might be able to turn its defenses against our attackers." As the human team fought for survival, each using their unique skills and rapidly adapting to the escalating challenges, the Zarkari command ship was in turmoil. Seltor turned to the overseer, his composure slipping. "This is unprecedented. They're not just surviving, they're turning the planet's own defenses against us. How is this possible?" The overseer's form flickered, its usual confidence replaced by growing concern. The prophecy spoke of beings who could bend the will of Deathworlds to their own. We dismissed it as myth, but now it trailed off, the implications hanging heavy in the air. Back on the surface, Major Chen had finally reached the rendezvous point. As she entered the cave system, she was greeted by the sight of her team, battered, exhausted, but very much alive and still fighting. "Status report," she commanded, falling easily back into her leadership role. One by one, the team members shared their experiences and discoveries. As Chen listened, a plan began to form in her mind. They had been on the defensive since landing on this hellish planet, but now it was time to take the fight to their mysterious attackers. "All right, team," Chen said, her voice filled with determination. "We've proven we can survive anything this planet and these aliens throw at us. Now it's time to show them why you don't corner a human. Dr. Okoye, I need you to work with Reyes and O'Neill to weaponize your understanding of the planet's defenses. Volkov, you and I will run interference and gather intel on our attackers." As the team set to work, the cave around them seemed to pulse with energy, as if the planet itself was responding to their resolve. High above, in orbit around Deathworld Nexus, the Overseer made a decision that would change the course of galactic history. "Seltor," it commanded, its voice resonating with ancient power, "prepare the World Breaker. If we cannot defeat these humans, we will destroy the entire planet. The risk is too great." Seltor's compound eyes widened in shock. "But Overseer, the World Breaker hasn't been used in millennia. The consequences are necessary," the Overseer cut him off. "These humans represent a threat to everything we have built. They must not be allowed to leave this planet alive." As the Zarkari prepared their ultimate weapon, unaware that their every move was being watched and analyzed by the resourceful humans, The stage was set for a confrontation that would shake the very foundations of the galaxy. The hunt had begun in earnest, but the hunters were quickly becoming the hunted. Humanity's true test was about to begin, and the outcome would determine not just their fate, but the fate of countless worlds across the cosmos. Unveiling the truth. As the Zalkari prepared their devastating world-breaker weapon, the human team on Deathworld Nexus was formulating a plan that would challenge the very fabric of galactic politics. In the pulsating chambers of Dr. Okoi's living cave system, Major Chen and her team huddled around a makeshift holographic display, courtesy of Sergeant O'Neill's ingenious repurposing of their damaged equipment. "All right, team, here's what we know," Chen began, her voice steady despite the dire circumstances. "These Zalkari aren't just testing us, they're actively trying to eliminate us. The question is, why?" Dr. Reyes, his suit now adorned with a patchwork of local flora providing additional protection, stepped forward. "I've been analyzing the data from our encounters with the Eradicators. Their technology, while advanced, shows signs of being adapted from various sources. It's as if the Zalkari have been scavenging and repurposing tech from multiple species." Captain Volkov nodded, his face grim. "That aligns with their combat tactics. They're using strategies I've seen in historical records from Earth's own conflicts, just with advanced tech. It's like they studied warfare across the galaxy and cherry-picked the best parts." O'Neill, tinkering with what looked like a hybrid of alien tech and scavenged planetary materials, chimed in. "So what? They're some kind of galactic plagiarists, stealing everyone else's homework and passing it off as their own." Dr. Okoi, her hands dancing across the surface of the cave wall as if interfacing with the planet itself, suddenly gasped. "That's it. The planet, it's trying to communicate with us. I think it's been trying all along, but we weren't listening correctly." The team gathered around her as the cave wall began to shimmer, forming images and symbols that shifted and changed rapidly. "It's some kind of historical record," Okoi breathed, her eyes wide with wonder. "The Zalkari, they're not the galactic peacekeepers they claim to be. They're conquerors, subjugating species across the galaxy and absorbing their knowledge and technology." As the images flowed, a terrible truth began to emerge. The Zalkari had been systematically testing species across the galaxy, eliminating those they deemed too weak to be useful and enslaving those with valuable traits or technology. Earth, with its harsh environments and adaptable inhabitants, had caught their attention as a potential treasure trove of genetic material and survival techniques. "But why go to all this trouble?" Chen asked, her mind racing with the implications. "Why not just invade Earth directly?" Reyes, his scientific mind, piecing together the puzzle, spoke up. "The prophecy they mentioned, I think we're looking at it all wrong. It's not about us being some predestined threat. It's about potential. They're afraid of what we might become if left unchecked." Volkov nodded, understanding dawning on his face. It makes sense. Earth's isolated position in the galaxy has allowed us to develop independently. We're an unknown variable in their carefully controlled system." As the team digested this information, alarms suddenly blared from their cobbled-together sensor array. O'Neill rushed to the display, his face paling as he read the data. Guys, we've got a big problem. There's some kind of massive energy build-up in orbit. Whatever it is, it's got enough juice to crack this planet like an egg." Chen's mind raced, weighing their options. They were outgunned, outnumbered, and trapped on a hostile planet with a doomsday weapon pointed at them. But if there was one thing humans excelled at, it was finding a way to survive against impossible odds. "Dr. Okoi," Chen said, turning to the environmental engineer. "You said the planet was trying to communicate. Can you send a message back?" Okoi nodded, her hands already moving across the cave wall. "I think so, but I'm not sure how much control we'll have or what the planet can actually do." "Do it," Chen ordered. "Tell it we're here to help, that we can stop the ones trying to destroy it. As for the rest of us, we need to find a way to contact that ship and buy some time." As Okoi communed with the living planet, the others set to work. Reyes and O'Neill began repurposing their equipment to boost their communication range, while Volkov and Chen prepared for a possible last stand against the Eradicators. High above the planet's surface, aboard the Zarkari command ship, Zelta watched with growing unease as the Worldbreaker powered up. "Overseer, I must protest one last time. The use of the Worldbreaker violates countless galactic treaties. If word of this gets out..." The Overseer's form shimmered with barely contained rage. "Silence. The humans have proven themselves too dangerous to be allowed to live. Once they are eliminated, we will rewrite history as we have always done. The galaxy will never know." Suddenly, alarms blared throughout the ship. The Overseer's form flickered as it turned its attention to the incoming data. "Impossible. How are they?" Before it could finish, every screen on the bridge lit up with Major Chen's face, her expression one of grim determination. "This is Major Sarah Chen of Earth, addressing the Zarkari Command. We know the truth about your so-called Galactic Confederation. We know about the species you've enslaved and destroyed, and we're here to tell you your reign of terror ends today." As the Zarkari reeled from this unexpected communication, Deathworld Nexus itself began to change. The storms intensified, but now they seemed focused, directed. Bolts of energy shot from the planet's surface towards the Zarkari ship, disrupting its systems. Chen continued, her voice carrying the weight of humanity's defiance. "You thought you could test us, break us, and if all else failed, destroy us. But you made one crucial mistake. You underestimated the human spirit. We don't just survive, we adapt. We evolve. And now, we're not just fighting for ourselves, but for every species you've ever oppressed." As she spoke, the human team on the surface sprang into action. Using their newfound connection with the planet and their jury-rigged equipment, they began to turn the tide. The Eradicators found themselves outmaneuvered at every turn, their advanced technology failing against the combined might of human ingenuity and planetary defenses. Aboard the Zarkari ship, chaos reigned. The Overseer, its confident demeanor shattered, turned to Xelator. "How is this possible? They're just primitives." Xelator, watching the humans coordinate seamlessly with the planet's defenses, realized the truth that had eluded his species for so long. "No, Overseer, they're not primitives. They're the future we've been fearing, and perhaps a hope this galaxy has been waiting for." As the battle raged both on the surface and in orbit, the fate of not just humanity, but countless oppressed species across the galaxy hung in the balance. The truth had been unveiled, and now it was time for humanity to prove once and for all why they were a force to be reckoned with in the cosmic arena. Humanity's triumph, the battle for Deathworld Nexus, had reached its crescendo. On the planet's surface, the human team fought with a synergy that defied explanation, their movements perfectly coordinated with the world around them. Major Chen, her suit now a patchwork of alien technology and indigenous materials, led the charge against waves of increasingly desperate Eradicators. "Keep pushing," Chen shouted, her voice carrying over the din of battle. "We've got them on the ropes." Captain Volkov, wielding what looked like a living weapon grown from the planet itself, covered their flank. "Only ni ojidali takogo suprativlania." They didn't expect such resistance, he growled, taking down 3 Eradicators with a burst of bioelectric energy. Meanwhile, in orbit, the situation had devolved into chaos. The Zarkari command ship shuddered under the assault of the planet's focused energy beams, its shields flickering dangerously. On the bridge, Zelta watched in awe as the impossible unfolded before him. "Overseer," he said, turning to the flickering form beside him, "we must abort the mission. The humans have formed a symbiosis with the planet. If we continue, we risk." Silence. The Overseer roared, its form pulsing with fury. "I will not be defeated by these primitives. Activate the Worldbreaker, now." As Zarkari crew members scrambled to obey, alarms blared throughout the ship. On the main view screen, a new threat appeared, a massive tendril of crystalline material rising from the planet's surface like a colossal tentacle. Back on the ground, Dr. Okoye stood at the heart of the living cave system, her eyes closed in deep concentration. The walls around her pulsed with energy, and her teammates watched in awe as she seemingly communicated with the planet itself. "It's working," she breathed, her eyes snapping open. "The planet is responding. It's not just defending itself anymore, it's fighting back." Dr. Reyes, monitoring their cobbled-together sensors, called out, "Energy spike from the Zarkari ship. I think they're trying to activate their superweapon." Sergeant O'Neill, his hands flying over a console that was part alien tech, part scavenged parts, and part indigenous growth, grinned maniacally. "Not if I have anything to say about it." With a final keystroke, he initiated the program he'd been working on. "Let's see how they like a taste of their own medicine." Aboard the Zarkari ship, pandemonium erupted as systems began to fail across the board. The Worldbreaker, moments away from firing, suddenly powered down, its energy redirected by O'Neill's viral code. Zeltor turned to the Overseer, his voice firm. "It's over. The humans have won." The Overseer's form flickered violently, its voice distorting. "No, I will not allow this. I'll destroy them myself if I have to." Before Zeltor could react, the Overseer's energy form surged towards the planet's surface. On Deathworld Nexus, the human team regrouped at the cave entrance, watching as the crystalline tendril continued its ascent towards the Zarkari ship. Suddenly, the air before them shimmered, and the Overseer materialized, a being of pure energy, crackling with malevolent power. "You meddlesome creatures," it snarled, its voice shaking the very ground. "You have no idea what you've done. The galaxy needs order, control. Without us, it will fall into chaos." Major Chen stepped forward, her team flanking her protectively. "You're wrong. The galaxy doesn't need tyrants. It needs cooperation, diversity, the very things you've been stifling." The Overseer laughed, a sound like shattering glass. "And you think you can provide that? You, who have barely left your own solar system." "We can," Chen replied, her voice unwavering. "Because unlike you, we don't fear change. We embrace it." As if in response to her words, the planet itself seemed to come alive around them. The ground shifted, forming a protective barrier around the humans. Plants and crystals grew at an accelerated rate, their structures intertwining with the team's equipment and suits. Dr. Okoye's eyes widened in realization. "It's not just the planet," she said in awe. "It's every life form we've encountered here. They're all working together, forming a unified defense network." The Overseer, sensing the shift in power, lashed out with tendrils of energy. But for every attack, the planet had a defense. Crystalline shields deflected energy blasts, while carnivorous plants snapped at the Overseer's form. Sergeant O'Neill, his jury-rigged weapon humming with power, called out, "Hey, Doc, remember that little trick we worked on? I think now's the time." Dr. Reyes nodded, pulling out a vial of shimmering liquid, a synthesized compound based on the planet's natural defenses. As O'Neill fired his weapon, creating a localized electromagnetic field, Reyes threw the vial. The combination had an explosive effect. The Overseer's energy form destabilized, parts of it seeming to phase in and out of existence. What have you done to me?" it shrieked. "Adaptation," Reyes said simply. "The very thing you feared about us." With a final furious howl, the Overseer's form collapsed in on itself, dissipating into nothingness. In the silence that followed, the team looked at each other in disbelief. They had done it. They had not only survived the unsurvivable, but had overthrown a galactic tyrant in the process. Aboard the Zarkari ship, Zeltor watched the final confrontation through the ship's sensors. With the Overseer gone and the humans victorious, he made a decision that would change the course of galactic history. "This is Ambassador Zeltor of the Zarkari," his voice rang out across all communication channels. "To the humans of Earth, and to all species across the galaxy, we surrender. the reign of the so-called Galactic Confederation is over. As cheers erupted from the human team on the surface, Zerto continued, "We have much to atone for and much to learn. If you will allow it, we would like to start by learning from you, not as conquerors, but as equals." Major Chen, looking at her team, battered, exhausted, but triumphant, nodded. "We accept your surrender, Ambassador, and we look forward to building a new galactic community, one based on mutual respect and cooperation." As the crystalline tendril gently lowered the human team to the Zarkari ship, Chen couldn't help but smile. They had come to this planet expecting a test of survival. Instead, they had sparked a revolution that would reshape the galaxy. Dr. Okoi, taking one last look at the planet that had become their unexpected ally, whispered, "Thank you." And as if in response, a warm breeze swept across the now calm surface of Deathworld Nexus, a planet that would forever be remembered as the birthplace of a new era in galactic history. In the years that followed, Earth would take its place among the stars not as a conquered world, but as a leader in a new galactic alliance. The adaptability, creativity, and indomitable spirit that had allowed humanity to survive on Deathworld Nexus would go on to solve crises, bridge divides between species, and push the boundaries of what was thought possible. And so, the human race, the Deathworlders who didn't recognize danger, became not the destroyers that the Zarkari had feared, but the saviors that the galaxy had been waiting for. The end.